30th, 2024. This is our first recording of the class. The previous lessons that we had, they were very like theoretical, presentation oriented. We did a little bit of hands-on stuff, but nothing major for us to record and for you to reflect back to see how to do things. Going forward, things will advance quite faster. We're going to be using more applications, more tools, and more complicated software, where I think the recording will help you going forward with these lessons, okay? This is why I tested my Teams here. It takes me a while to set this room up because every time the computer shuts off, it resets from the beginning. I got to set everything up every time I come here, which is fine. As long as it works, no problem doing it. So having said that, I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to get started. First, I'll do the presentation, the normal PDF. Today, we're right in the middle. We're talking about the structure today. We finished doing the strategy and the other components, so now we're going to get into the structure scope, and eventually we'll segue our way into designing the app, which is the big project coming up as well. All right, so here we go. I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to get started. So let's turn off my camera. I'm glad to see everybody, or most of you, hand in your website critiques. That's good. So that those will get marked very soon. The only thing that's pending right now, you do have the user persona. So going to last week's lesson that we did, you see the importance of incorporating a user persona in your portfolio. Not just a standard user persona, but even like a product that matches the criteria. Because it's hard to do a user persona just interviewing people for no reason. The reason was your product you came up with. Remember the smartware, whatever it was, the user persona will reflect this product being launched successfully. So this is why we cover the famous strategies of UX. So if we go to our slides here, we're now like right in the middle. We covered the strategy, we covered the scope. These are like, I know, not too exciting things to talk about, but they're important if you want to have a proper UX understanding. So now that we're covered the formalities here, we're going to get into the more exciting stuff, I like to call it. So today we're going to talk about structure, what structure is. So structure is going to talk about interaction design. This is when the next assignment will come in really handy. You're going to get to create the buttons, the clicks, the UI kits, all the stuff you're being trained in your graphic design semesters. So then we have information architecture as well, how to organize information appropriately. That's going to help you, again, build proper apps and websites going forward with prototyping. So once we cover that, next week we'll get into the skeleton, which is the more interface design, navigation, and information design. And finally, we get into the surface, which is the visual design stuff. All right. So once we finish these planes, it's going to be a lot more hands-on stuff like using Figma and XD. I'll start with XD because this course was kind of made around XD. Now with Figma taking the lead, we're going to have to keep up with the demand that's out there. I don't want to teach you guys expired programs. Now, I should be careful how I say expired, because most instructors I talk to in colleges and institutions, they still use XD. The industry still uses XD, although it's not supported. So it's important that we cover that too, and we get into the Figma side as well. So let's cover the structure presentation first. I do have it set up for you, and then we're gonna get into the actual applications and the assignments. All right. So what is the structure? Just gonna download this quickly here. And perhaps I'll open it in Acrobat. These are readily available for you to have as well. So if you want to, read up on this stuff a little later. And okay, so the UX structure in depth. So basically it says you're here. Structure defines how users get to a given screen and where they can go when they're done. Now this strategy was applied to websites, and now it's basically becoming a norm for apps and mobile devices. So structure also defines categories of information. Structure is created by interaction design, which presents information in a way people can interact with it. Structure is also created by information architecture. So when you hear not AI, IA stands for information architecture. Organization, labeling, search, and navigation systems all have to have this implementation. Good structure organizes information in a way that provides intuitive access to content. And this is very important. I can't stress how important the intuitive part is. Structure should be appropriate. So there's different ways of creating structure when you develop these apps and websites. And you can see here by this nice diagram that I have here put together for you guys. There's a simple method and a complex method. The scale goes from bottom to top. And then there's different narratives as well. So obviously the simple, the linear narrative. What I'm doing right now is this one right here. I'm going one by one, step by step. The more, popular presentations are done this way, okay? Now, if you look at like a website presentation or something that you did last semester, even maybe this semester, is something like this. That's your standard website, right? You got your navigation, you go to a page, you go to another page, back to the home page, so on and so forth. As we get more advanced and complex, your project in this class will look like something like maybe like this, okay? Because that's when you can kind of go all over the map in terms of navigation. That's why it's important to have the right information, architecture, or organization in your plan to have a successful launch of an app or a website. So it says nonlinear, hyperlink, flexible, but possibly confusing. I'm sure you've seen apps that are very confusing. You're like, how do I go back, or how do I get to this point? So this is why it's important as an architect, you have to make these things user-friendly. Because otherwise, people will get frustrated and things are not going to be successful. Structure should also accommodate future change. If you have a blueprint, this is the reason why this picture is here. It's because it's a very complicated schematic diagram or a scheme of some kind of a floor or a structure. It's hard to make changes when things like this are done. You can't just all of a sudden move this wall over here, right? So these things are very hard to edit. They're pretty much indestructible, right? This is another type of diagram for a timeline. So for example, let's say you have a plan to create a website due March, which is 2 months from now. So March, April, May, or June, September. So this is why they're telling you you should do things in steps. So it's easier to add, modify, or add pages to your website or app in this case, okay? Now, when it comes to interaction design, they use the term dancing in step, okay? So this is how smooth and easy it should be. It's like a rhythm, okay? It's like when you dance, you don't think about it. You just do it naturally. Your body just gets into the groove. You go by the music and the flow. The same thing that I want you to incorporate when you're designing things, think like that. Have nice and flow, right? Easy. Dancing in a step. So interaction design defines the structure and behavior of interactive systems. It creates meaningful relationships between people and the things they use. It effectively communicates interactivity and functionality. It reveals simple and complex workflows. It informs users about state changes. And when done right, it prevents user error. And this is some of the 5 essential principles of interaction experience design. There's a lot of interactive components that you're going to be working with for your next projects and apps and buttons and UI kits. But these are the most important things that are kind of highlighted. Consistency, okay? Predictable, make sure people can predict what happens next. What happens when you drag something in the trash can? You can predict what's going to happen, right? You'll delete the file.
You have to have that same intuition. You can't just assume people know what's going to happen if they click somewhere. Make it clear for them to understand. This is why, for decades now, they implemented the same icons over and over again. You see an email icon, you know what an email icon does, or a trash can or a recycling bin. These are all identifiable. So learnable, visible, feedback's important, okay? This is like a common consistency example for websites. A lot of the menus you see now are all across horizontally like that, even now. Nothing has changed in the past 15 to 20 years. I remember 20 years ago when we used to teach HTML, we used to do frames. You know how the menus were? The menus were on the side, like this presentation, and the websites would load here. And a few times we would have a menu go across like that. But now most websites have the top nav bar situated at the very top of the page. And the reason for that is, again, for responsive, flexible modifications. So when you resize the website to your phone, it turns into a hamburger menu, right? Either way, consistency is still there. A lot of websites have an extra menu at the top. The search menu, usually each corner works. It's a standard setup, okay? What makes this possible is consistent UI kit designs. This is something that you're going to design for your next assignment. You're going to make a UI kit. This is just an example of one here, that the buttons and everything look very consistent. Look at the OS you're using you guys are using Windows, Mac, the same thing. Consistency throughout the operating system, consistency throughout the website or the app. So these are some of the behavior, transitions, rollovers, tooltips should have obviously consistency, leverage the visitor's prior experience here and elsewhere. Voice, labels and terms should be the same throughout the experience. Content and imagery should have a stable, consistent style. So there's different behaviors. Some design patterns to note as well. This is, I think, a Windows or Android skin for the operating system. Reusable solutions to recurring problems. Content may change, but interaction and processes stay the same. Makes actions and results consistent and predictable. Have you noticed a big change between Windows 10 and 11? You guys remember Windows 10? You have Windows 11 now? Do you notice a big difference? Yeah, I like Windows 11. Like I use my Mac when I get a chance, but at home I have a PC and a Mac. Windows 11 is actually pretty nice. It's fast, it's fluent, it's cleaned up now. Before it would like lag a lot. Windows 10, I wasn't even Windows 10 wasn't that bad, but the previous versions of Windows, I wasn't too happy about. So finally they get the act together, okay? Which one? Windows 8, yeah. Remember Windows Vista? They killed that right away, right? So you see how it takes even like, these are like billion-dollar investments of companies making software. And you know what it came down to? The user interaction. And of course, the back end, the processing and stuff like that. So make actions and result consistent and predictable, right? Discoverability shouldn't involve luck or chance. People should be able to tell what an opportunity to interact is available. Use content hinting. Avoid false buttons. When more content interactivity exists below the visible space. Nike, this is an example I see most brand websites. A lot of them don't even have a menu. Like you just have these imagery happening, right? And then eventually you got to look for it, or it's going to come up somewhere. It's going to be a pop-up surprise for you to kind of figure out the next step. So don't leave it to chance. Kind of make it pretty present there for people to do what they want to do. Click and tap. These are things you're going to have to get invested in now to really make things apparent, to click on these areas. How will people know to click on those areas? You have to make them highlighted. Now, this is an exaggerated example, but it just points those little tabs and buttons that you know how to click. So people will attempt to interact with anything that might possibly be clickable. So don't falsely make a button that doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. Standard user interface components are understood to be interactive, so use them. Different text color, 3D, icons, all invite interaction. So unless your intent is to do that, go ahead, go the extra mile and make those eye candy buttons. Games on your phone, I'm sure all of you play some games, are known for this. They all have these 3D fancy looking buttons. You know they're clickable because they're right there. Quite evident. Touch and gesture. There's no hover state for touchscreens, right? There's no hover. But you guys do hover state on the websites, right? So when we do the apps, we're not going to even bother with hover state. But if they do interact with the website for the prototype, hover state, I think it's good. I like hover states, right? Because you use the mouse to interact with the screen. But if a touch screen, obviously not. Consider the lefties of the world, making interfaces reversible. How many left-handed people here? Okay, see, there's a handful. Sometimes they get more or less. So how do you have problems when you guys, let me ask you a personal question. Do you have problems with some apps? Because you're left-handed or no?
No, you don't put any extras by being left.
What do? Cross over your finger with the screen, or do you use the right hand?
Like, just do that
Just do that, right?
with my left hand.
But if you're, not if you're driving, but if you're holding it with one hand, can you reach over to the other side?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, if you're holding it in your palm and the hamburger rings in the opposite corner, how do you move the thumb?
Yeah, I would do that, or like honestly, it's not that hard to do.
So you get used to it, you adapt,
You just
right?
And the size of your finger, and the size of the icon.
You see, but
Yes.
all these things matter, right? And all these things you should take into consideration when you design an app, because you got to think about the lefties, the righties, all that stuff makes sense. See, don't make people reach over the interface and obstruct their view, because you're gonna now reach over an area that you're covering. Interaction should be easy to learn and easy to remember. Ideally, people use it once, learn it rapidly, remember it forever. So we hope, right? In reality, they use it a few times, learn it, and hope to remember it next time, right? Once you use an app more than 2-3 times, it becomes like natural, right? You don't have to think anymore. You know exactly where to click. You still have to kind of look. You can't do a blindfolded, obviously, right? But you still have to, you can kind of know, your brain has a pattern recognition, what to do to go to that area. Whether you're checking your Instagram feed or whether you're going to like another app or something. Your brain recognizes the pattern of what it has to do. And of course, this is how, whether it's a different OS for Apple or Android, they're all very similar and the same. Remember, intuitive really means single trial learning. Single trial learning, right? Even interfaces that are easy to use may require learning. But the more we use it, the easier it seems. What I mentioned earlier, we learn behaviors from experiences across the web, devices, and real world places and objects. Obviously, when you look at these icons, you don't recognize none of them, do you? Right? Right now, just look at the icons. Do you know what they mean? What does that first icon mean? It means working with no lyrics. Look, the second one, brand new music, right? The middle one means office crowd pleasers. Working with lyrics, an energy boost.
I don't like it.
Right? I'm not happy with these either. Who the heck made this up? I didn't. But you see, like it or not, if you're a user and these buttons are there, guess what happens the third time you use them? You remember it. Your brain will remember that's what that does. So learning behaviors, okay? Okay, here's the gestures can be arbitrary. Now, this stuff was 4 and 15 years ago. Now it's the norm, right? And you have to know all these things, right? So I'm sure a lot of you know the taps. You know the double tap, touch and hold. Like when you click on something and wait for a longer period of time, it becomes what? A draggable item, right? So these are things invested inside the operating system of most devices. Horizontal scroll, vertical scroll, double tap with 2 fingers. See, they ran out of, it's like a mouse button. There's a 1 click or there's a right click. Now most devices recognize 2 fingers placed on the screen. You know, in early generations, that wasn't possible. How many of you use a double tap on your fingers for something? Right? So that does this. What does that do, by the way? It depends, right? Which app, yeah. Then there's the 2-finger flick, right, 2-finger flick left. There's the pinch zoom, okay? There's the spread, rotate, drag, and triple tap. I mean, it gets really advanced after a while, right? And sometimes it's frustrating because you're clicking 4 times and nothing's happening. The app is not responding as fast as your device. Maybe your device is getting older or whatever the reason is. It's out of date. You have to always update it and stuff. Okay, but gestures are arbitrary. Obviously, these are all the different ones I mentioned. Of course, there's maybe some other ones that we're going to think about. You know what? Which one is not here that you might use but you don't see it? I got one. Do you guys have one? Okay, the palm swipe. The palm swipe. So I do have a Samsung tablet at home because I try to do different device learning too, right? It's my job. So I invest in many products as I can to test them. So this Samsung tab has the palm swipe to do what? A screen capture. Ask me if I like that. Half the time it doesn't work. How does it define my palm? Your palm might be different than my palm, right? So it's totally faulty and it's really, really not good. I'm really disappointed in Samsung, how they invested in this palm swipe type of gesture. That doesn't work, right? I don't know, have you guys never used that one before?
So in iPhone, we have
3 fingers to screenshot.
3 fingers? For which one? The Samsung? How about this one? This is the worst. I love this phone, but I got this phone because it has the pen, and I like to, you know, write things down, and I can just kind of go, you know, right? But I can't do screen captures. I have to get the pen out, draw a screen capture, and save it. I have to do the button thing, which is awkwardly placed on the side. You got to press the volume button and the power button at the same time, which is really, really. See, I like that. Right? What's the iPhone now? I forgot the iPhone. What's the iPhone? I used an iPhone like 3 years ago. What's the new iPhone screen capture that you have?
we can set any. We can add any gesture as well.
So you can do a double tap thing.
We can do anything.
So the fact that you can customize it's good, right? But what's the default? Sorry.
Default would be the same thing.
The buttons. Got it. So you can, yeah. I think all of them you can change. You can go into the settings and address your own customized thing. But by default, how many people change their phone ring? You ever go to a store and you hear the same ring as you? Like, oh, no one changes their phone rings anymore. It's not a thing anymore. Nobody cares. Okay. So the defaults are left on the phone as they are, unless you really get in there and personalize it. All right. Again, the predictable part of interface experience design is things like you got to ask yourself. People are you know, basically can use or answer these questions. Where am I? How did I get here? What can I do here? Where can I go from here? These are things you have to ask yourself every time you build an interface, because that's what people are asking subconsciously in their brains. So make sure you also, as a designer, you've provided a strong sense of place. You've set the correct expectations. You've made it possible for people to accurately predict the outcomes of their interactions. So they're not going to guess what's going to happen, right? Previews can be used to set user expectations for new or complex interactions. Show that what can be done while the interface loads. Show a high-level view of the structure to provide context, much like a map. Now, these are called tutorials. And how many of us love tutorials? And what's known for tutorials? A lot of those games have tutorials. Before you play a game, especially those complex games, they'll tell you what to do. Like an example, click here, click there. And even that's hard to remember sometimes, right? But these are important. While the app loads in the background, it tells you the actual interactions of what you have to do. You can do the same thing in your app as well. Build in a tutorial on how to use your product. And there are some examples of notes of tutorials, what will happen, what to do, where you can go, foster a sense of place, how the screen will respond, X and Y and will happen, and so on and so forth. Another one, feedback. This is so underrated. Okay? Without this, I mean, think how impatient we are right now with this, you know, all these new social media. Like, we're like just so kind of insensitized with everything. Or desensitized, I should say. If you drag something, if you don't get something like showing you what's happening, like a status, it's copying this long, it'll take this long, right? Wouldn't it be nice to know that information? What happens if you don't see that? What do you do, wait? Right? So it's important that these things are there. This is why they created loading screens, okay? Your file's being sent. So it gives you progress of what's happening. Okay, so this is important when you interact yourself with these things. You have to make sure you present all these questions like location, status, what's happening, future state, outcomes and results. What's happened? The file got successfully delivered. Have you guys used WeTransfer before? Or file or Dropbox and stuff, right? So it gives you these notifications, right? Otherwise, you won't know. Every action should produce a visible, understandable, and immediate reaction. Acknowledge interactions to let people know they have been heard, felt, or seen. Failing to acknowledge an interaction can lead to unnecessary repetition of actions and errors or mistakes. And this is the big one here. Ready? This is the worst one. I've done this with PayPal once. I clicked purchase. I pressed it twice by accident because I didn't think the first one didn't work through. I got 2 purchases. How stupid is that? Does that happen to you? You never clicked twice on a button before? Well, because they did a good job of following up to the next screen and saying, thank you for your purchase. Do you want to buy it again? But this thing, I think it was like I think it was a PlayStation store or something like that, Sony with PayPal, and it was really poorly done. You click buy, and it just sat there. So I said, did it go through? Because I was expecting a response saying, yes, thank you. Thank you. A thank you would be nice, right? I didn't get that. So then I called PayPal. I said, listen, I got charged twice. Then I had to argue with the person. So I go, look, it happened a second later. Why would I buy the same thing twice? And eventually I got my money back. But still, it was one of those occurrences. Another feedback thing, when you go to a website, and I know a big company just shut down the other day, got hacked. A lot of big websites get hacked now, right? Well, you should put something there, not just error 404, but error prevention is the best error handling complement. Don't complicate. Describe what happened, explain why it happened, suggest a fix, never blame the user. So we'll be back shortly and stuff like that. I forgot which screen capture this is from, but when things are under construction. Error prevention is the best error handling complement. Don't complicate. Same thing here, just following it up. Look at Twitter, formerly known as X. Twitter used to use a funny thing when their system's down. Twitter's over capacity. You know, when Twitter was like first launched in the beginning, it got overloaded with people using it. They put little birds carrying a whale just to have humor built into the equation. So it's not so serious, right? So they kind of, you know, tell people, listen, come back. Sorry, things are over capacity. Look at ChatGPT, right? When you first start using it, I remember when I first started using that stuff, it was telling me it was busy because too many people were using it at the same time. It got over flooded with users. So same thing, come back later. Wasn't as humorous as that one though. So these are the 5 principles that are interrelated. Consistency, how people use what they know. Visibility of opportunity can invite interaction. Learning is easier when predictions are accurate. And feedback facilitates learning. So all these things I described to you now basically fall into these terms right here. Okay, just examples that every day you've encountered yourselves. So remember, you're not designing for yourself. These are like just your marching orders. Okay, understand the goals and needs you're designing for. Think hard about the design and the experience. Set the user's expectations for the experience. Don't hinder, obstruct, or interfere with the experience. Try to break what you built. Be your own worst visitor. Again, you're not designing for yourself. That's just a thing to reiterate. All right, information architecture, what is it? Not AI, but IA. This is what IA looks like. This is a very complex website. Maybe for like, I don't know, maybe a financial company or something really, maybe like a company that deals with software or a very, very high level detailed, diagram, even with legends to explain what it does. So if you make a sophisticated app or a website, it might look like something like this. Think about it. You think you can make a complex website without this? How? You need a plan. You need a blueprint, just like a house or whatever you're building. There's got to be a plan, right? Predetermined before you start the job. No different goes for something like this. Where you're going to be designing your next project, you're going to be designing this flowchart or this schematic diagram, which is the plan. Maybe not to this level, but something, I'll show you a simpler approach. Organize, categorize, and prioritize. Information architecture is the creation of organizational and navigational schemes. A good IA allows people to move through content efficiently and effectively. It's about more than just finding content. It's also about educating, informing, and persuading, often in equal doses. An effective IA is flexible, accommodating growth, and adapting to change. And there's your hierarchical tree. This is a standard structure with an index page and a series of subpages. Again, typical website you built probably already with the HTML class, right? This is typical. You have the index.html page right there, and you have the other pages to follow. It's good for organizing complicated structures that resemble a desktop site or a system structure. Multifaceted navigation structures can present a problem for people using small screens. So this might be a problem for the smaller screens. What's this called? Hub and spoke. This is when you get into the apps now. So when apps took over your phone, this is the more common method of how social media is integrated. A lot of apps work like this. It's called the hub and spoke. It means you can go from here into 4 different directions, maybe more than 4, that's just 4 as an example. So this gives users a central index hub. So this is your index right here, the main page. And from there you go to these other areas. Users can't navigate between spokes. They have to return to the hub. Pay attention to that one. So if you go to your settings or to your pictures, the only way to go back is to your main hub. To go back to the next, you can't go from here to there. You can only go back to the main page to go back to the next one. That's how the hub and spoke method is implemented. Something that it makes it easy for people, especially that are like beginners or not as savvy with technology. It's like a foolproof method that works in most simple, successful apps. Good for multifunctional tools with an app, each with its own internal navigation and purpose. This is a nested list. This pattern leads users to linear paths. Again, similar to the presentation that I'm doing now, it just goes next, 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 previous, previous, previous. More detailed content, there's like a lot of information. Nesting provides a quick, easy method of navigation under stress. It also gives the user a strong sense of where they are. Good for apps or sites with singular or closely related topics, like articles and stuff, Reddit, things like that. You can go next, next, next through your articles there. Although a lot of them have like a menu too. This is the bento box dashboard. I don't make this stuff up, by the way, okay? This is just what's out there. This is the name and terminology people call it. The bento box, okay? As we know, it's a nice, delicious lunch. The dashboard displays portions of related tools or content on a main screen. This pattern is more suited for desktop or tablet due to its complexity. It allows the user to get key information at a glance, but relies heavily on a well-designed user interface. So if you have a poorly designed user interface, this can have some serious consequences. Filtered view. This pattern allows the user to filter content in order to create an alternate view of a specific information set. Give me an example of a filtered content. Okay, shopping has a filter. I want something more Inner.
There are features that if you want something that is below 5 if you want.
Absolutely.
Abilities,
Absolutely, yes.
that colors.
Good idea, yeah. Another example? Spotify, iTunes, right? Because what genre you want to hear, what song, what music, right? So you're filtering your choices, just like a shopping cart. So all these things use a filtered view approach. So you're filtering the information. So it doesn't have a filter. It just goes through different points.
But it's different from how it's about.
It's different because it's very similar, but it's more complex with, so the design of the hub and spoke is very linear and boxy, kind of, this is more interactive. So if you click anywhere, you might go somewhere else.
But can you go, you don't have to go back to the main.
You do, because it doesn't have any relationships there. But again, this interface is more complex. Yeah, it's just the UI in this case is the main difference between the bent. Look at the bento box, look. See, it's very easy. It's like this one, that one, that one, that one. It's easy connect four kind of thing. It's like a more like a thumbnail approach, right? Whereas this is more complex interface UI design, but the relationship's the same.
So it's the same, but there's more.
There's more, yeah, there's more interactive elements on the screen. Okay. So, and the filters we already discussed. Getting to know nodes. You know what nodes are? Nodes. You know the anchor points that you use in Illustrator? We used to call those nodes. They're just elements of things, right? A node is the basic unit of any information structure. That's what the definition for a node is. Nodes can be as small as a single number or as large as an entire library. So it's like an item, right? Nodes allow us to use a common language and a common set of ideas across different problems. The organizing principles we use determine how the nodes of the information structure are arranged. In other words, it tells us which nodes are grouped together and which are kept separate. It's just something to know, nothing to kind of go over in detail. This is organizing principles of two websites. One's a corporate website, one's a travel website. Okay? What kind of organization principle is applied on a corporate website? Who's the main target? The audience, right? So audience is the organizing principle. Because you go to a corporate website, it's going to ask you, are you a consumer, are you a business, are you an investor? So maybe there's three different principles of the way it's organized. Like, investors, or let's say, members click here, visitors click here. So it's based by audience. You're navigating the corporate website. Just an example. Travel website. A travel website. You got different continents on the bottom here. Geography is the organizing principle, right? We go to like Expedia or these other web. Yeah, you go for deals and packages, but primarily I love to go to a website where I like to visit the area I want to visit. Click on the continent or the location, then see the hotels from there. That's why I love Realtor.ca. I'm doing this deal with this corporate website that one of my friends was asking to do, and he loves the Realtor because. And I looked across like Europe and other parts of the world. And there wasn't a Realtor type of website that we have. We have a really cool design mechanism here in Canada too, that's unmatched in the world. Like, yeah, now you can argue that and you can see different ideas. But I love how location or geographical is the main principle of organizing. Okay, click on location. Here, I'll show you my website. I made sure I implemented what I preach. So if you go to my website here, oh, by the way, I turned it into an app the other day, my website. So there's ways you can convert websites to apps now. It's like a service you pay for, but it's pretty cool. So let me just show you my Canadian Made Products website. Let me just open up a new tab here. Right? So CanadianMadeProducts.ca. So this is one of my platforms that I designed. So if I make it smaller, right? There's tablet view, mobile view, right? So the app is not like To make this into an app, it's a lot of work. Like I have to re-engineer the whole thing. Well, guess what? I made a little icon here. So when I click on this icon, it opens up a third-party app, which launches my app as a website as an app. Not in the browser, not like your bank when it takes you to a browser window, opens up like Google Chrome or opens up your browser. This is an actual app. So it did convert my website into an app. There's a lot of technology out there right now that you can make. So it is kind of make sure that's why when you design a website, make sure you do all the parameters properly to make it flexible. So basically when you do this, look, when you do this, it responds. So responsive is important, especially when you go here to there, right? To there. And now I'm gonna try to do that for my other platforms as well. You know how much this cost me to do? $87 US. About $100. Not bad. Better than hiring like an actual app developer and paying them, $5,000. Now, if I need to do that, I will, but because maybe an app is different than what I'm trying to do here. But if it works and it functions the same way, why not? It's the most, cost alternative method or solution for now. All right, so we're almost done here, guys. Just organizing rules of thumb. The organizing principles used at the highest levels of the site or app should be those most closely tied to the user needs and the business objectives. Two of the most important things. Because if you can't make one of these two people happy, remember like we did back in the research part of the scope, it won't work. If the company is not making money, the app's not going to get supported, it's going to fail. If the users are not happy, you're not going to get customers. So you got to get both people happy, the users and the business end of things. Both have to be equally happy, like Amazon. I love using Amazon as an example because it's a success story by itself. You guys know Steve Jobs used to make him and his wife would pack books in his garage, right? You know that? Do you remember? Sorry, Steve Jobs. Jeff Bezos. I mix up the two because they kind of look similar. Jeff Bezos and his wife would pack books in their garage, selling. Amazon was a bookstore, right? I remember when I first started teaching, most of my students would buy their books from Amazon because they were more cheaper than the bookstore. It wasn't what it is today, right? And look where that took that company. Because of these two things, user needs and business objectives. All right, those used at lower levels are usually influenced by feature specs and content requirements. Every collection of information has a built-in conceptual structure, and in most cases has more than one. The hard part isn't creating a structure, it's creating the right structure for our objectives and our users' needs. Some more organizing with facets. Facets are attributes or information the set that provides a flexible set of organizing principles for nearly any kind of content. However, using the wrong facets can actually be worse than using none at all. When users have too many options to sort through, they often can't find anything. Just like that Craigslist website I gave you. Remember, some people like that. They like to see everything at once. It's our job, not the users, to identify the specific attributes of the information that will be most useful, usable, and valuable to our users. So you see how we break this thing down to science and stuff? It's important because you're going to be creating the content and organizing it and putting it together in a website or an app. It has to, all these things have to be considered. Okay, who does what? Who does what? When you guys have that group assignment that I'm going to assign to you next week, you have to establish your roles. Who's going to be the designer? Who's going to be the storyteller? Who's going to be the architect of the app, or who's going to create the research or conduct the map? Yes.
You all kind of get practice in all of this.
You should, absolutely. But one will have more of a role than the other, because that's usually how it works. You could cross-reference responsibilities too, yes. Because then you're not going to learn another skill that someone else has too. So typically lands on the lap of the developer unless there's a designer involved as well. In a ideal situation, an information architect is on the team to deal specifically with issues related to information organization and related interaction. Whether you have a specialist to address structure or not, someone needs to do it. So like, yes, like I said, one of you has to be in charge of information architecture. And just like you said, shouldn't we all do it? Well, you're all gonna know how to do a map for like the website, but you all have to, cohesively make it together. But one person will be in charge of putting it nice in Illustrator, and you're gonna be busy doing something else. So you share responsibilities, right? Yeah.
Will we know what exactly, like when you make,
Which one?
like what do they exactly do in this,
I'm gonna, so when I go over this stuff in hands-on, like I'm gonna teach you how to do all this hands-on, we're gonna create a map ourselves, okay? Like this sounds very formal, but it's very simple in terms of the way, remember the diagram I gave you with the website? That's what that really means. Organize in that very simplistic way, okay? Here, look, here's an example here, look. If you go back in the 70s, like, before my time too, this is how things were organized. You go to the library, this is how things were listed. Bullets, index, right? We didn't have what we have today. So to answer your question more elaborately, this is just an example of how you organize information. There's lists, bullets and stuff. Even now with Microsoft programs, you get to create indents and bullets to put things nested on other things. Look at how you do HTML. Same thing. Some of the programs have indents to put your code inside other lines of code. So it's how you organize information. You don't have to do that. You can just type HTML in one line. But it's easier to break it up in different type of returns and vertical sections to organize it like this. So methods vary based on the complexity of what's being produced. For projects with a high volume of content in a hierarchical structure, text outlines are often enough to document architecture. Now, this is a more like a visual vocabulary. Jesse James Garrett's system for diagramming structures. This guy's the first one that came up with this, I guess, idea, so he says. And this is what most people kind of gravitated towards. One of the earlier implementation of this type of organizational architecture. So whether it was a CD, an interactive CD, or a website, back in the 90s, let's say, 80s, 90s, this was done. File archive, support, home products, office products, products in general, media, press release. This is all a very simple scheme to follow. A lot of websites follow this today, right? A lot of simple websites, companies. Maybe there's more menus and buttons, but in a nutshell, this is what you get. Products, services, frequently asked questions, contact us, support, media archives, about us. That's it. Right? So this is common things on a website. This is another more complex integration with JavaScript and more sophisticated languages, because then you have like a login page, right? Not all websites have a login page, do they? Do all websites have login pages? No, they don't. But the ones that do have a more complex structure, because if you log in and you're successful, what happens? Like today, this morning when I came here, I had to do all this Google verification and Teams just to open up my stuff to work. I spent half an hour setting up my computer, right? Because I was stuck with the no. I had to go outside the room to get better reception for my phone will send me that 2-digit code so I can verify this computer could access my files. So it's frustrating, but I had to do it for security purposes. So once that's successful, it goes to yes, and then you get into the whole stuff as well, right? So it's a different process that you have to, as an architect or designer, have to produce. So when you communicate with the clients, people like these business people don't know this kind of stuff. In theory, they do, but you show them a diagram of how it's going to work. So you're more professional with the approach. Hub and spoke diagram. That's what they call it again, not like the hub and spoke app example. But this one is good to organize more visual type of ideas. You can see some of these areas are bigger than others, and you can kind of extend different principles in different areas together. And there's a zoomed in view of the hub and spoke diagram. I like this one actually, it's pretty creative. Christine, it looks like your circles there that you're working on. With the gloves there, yeah. This is more like a linear type of more complex information architecture here. You can see how like there's like 4 main pages, and they go into sub pages, and more pages and more pages. This is the kind of website that I built again for. I'll show you another example. This is another website I look after for one of my clients, Swiss and F Metals. This is that kind of website. Because look, when you go to products, look at this. Look how many products they have. And they want it like this because people have to see digital, alloy, sundries, attachments, implants. So when you go there, like, where do I go? There's over 2,000 products. So how is it supposed to put 2,000 products on a website? So the best way we did it was PDFs. And now we're redoing it an e-commerce thing and all kinds of solutions because it's not just this, it's other things. So 3D resin, let's say, this is the new stuff that came out. And this is just information that were plopped onto the website. You know, there's, you know, right? So this is very closely related to this kind of setup right here. Even more complex, right? So I like to show you examples, not just kind of, you know, read this stuff over, as if I can. Things to remember. Okay, we're almost done with this presentation soon. We'll get started with hands-on. You've been very, very active and perceptive. That's good. So these are the takeaway things. Good structure organizes information in a way that provides intuitive access to content. Structure is created by interaction design, which means presenting information in a way people can understand and interact with it. So make sure your design is very, very appealing and very user-friendly, right? That's what that means. Make it super simple. Not super simple, but, you know, aesthetically pleasing too. Structure is also created by information architecture. So IA, which is, that's the new term for today. When people talk about AI, you talk about IA, right? What's IA? Well, it's information architecture. That's what IA is, right? Which is the combination of organization, labeling, search and navigation systems within any digital product. And this goes back 30 years from today. I remember the CD days, DVD days. Even now there's interactive stuff on CDs and DVDs if you have copies of them, okay? And then there's the digital stuff like apps and websites and stuff. Structure should be appropriate for the audience and flexible to accommodate the change. Whether you have a specialist to address the structure or isn't important, someone needs to do this work. Focus on relationships between content elements, categories, okay, and the steps of the interaction sequence to fit together. This is just like an exercise example. You don't have to do this because you guys are doing another workshop there. All right, so now let's look at the assignment that's due next. Time's already, are you overwhelmed already with this semester or no? How do you feel so far? You look nice and relaxed, so I like that. Usually I can sense the stress level when I come into the classroom with students. You guys are always nice and chill, relaxed, doing your thing. I like that. It's good energy, right? Because we feed off each other too. So basically, this is your next assignment. This is, and I gave you an extension for the persona, and I think I gave you, it's due this weekend. So I know it's due Sunday, I think. So Sunday, get that user persona done. If you have any questions about that, I think we addressed it quite thoroughly last week, right? You pick a product and you make 2 people. And again, remember, this is a very popular assignment in the UX industry, just to kind of show you, just look at user personas out there. There's tons of them online, right? This is like a thorough done research for this particular case that you're doing. So you're just designing a user persona and, you know, not just a design. Yeah, I want the design to look good, but also put on, you know, a real practice, a real case scenario. So if you want, how many of you are doing your own, somebody in the classroom? Remember you said you can pick 2 people in the classroom? You don't have to, an option. You're all making up John Does and Janes and stuff, yeah? That's fine too, no problem. All right, so that's due this Sunday, so don't worry about it for now. But the next assignment, and this is why we're gonna start this one today. Everything we discussed today about, you know, information, architecture, designing, the buttons. We're gonna talk about the architecture later on as well when you build the product. But for this assignment, you're gonna be designing a rough layout model of a UI kit to support the design elements that will play a key role into design production techniques applied to the mobile prototype project. The class exercise should help you create the design along with the supported UI kit elements. Now, I know some of you recognize your faces from the WDDM section. You guys did this already with me. So do me a favor, do another one if you will have to. The graphic design students haven't done this before. Have you guys done a UI kit assignment before? You haven't. So 30 of you haven't, 5 of you have. So it's a lot of numbers that we didn't really get to.
Also do it in XD or in program?
Well, we're going to use XD. I'm going to do Illustrator as a starter with XD together. I'm going to do an Illustrator XD combo. Why? Because the 2 programs like to work together. And you're already familiar with Illustrator. I'll be honest with you, Illustrator is still by far the #1 design program out there to design things like that. Photoshop is a great digital imaging program, but Illustrator is a great design tool as well. Figma and XD can never, ever, ever come close to what Illustrator can do. Like, they're good prototype tools, that's it. Okay, so this is the actual handout. I have a fancier looking PDF. So look here, everybody. So you can do a rough draft first. What a rough draft means is it's going to be a grayscale design. No colors. Okay, just a grayscale design. And the good draft will be based on your rough draft. You're going to create a full rendered design which captures the color elements and interactive behavior states. Now, interactive behavior states means you're going to show me what they look like. But the next UI kit that you're going to do, because there's 2 of these, the next one's for the website, you're going to make an actual real interactive interface kit. So these buttons will slide and roll over and stuff like that. So you're going to make this an interactive, like an actual piano board. Okay? Sorry? You could, because it's called the inactive button. There you go, inactive button. This is a layout for now. I'll show you some student examples as well. So this is an example.
It's like that's what it will look like when it becomes interactive. It will go from A to B to C, but then in the next assignment, you'll actually be able to.
Very good. So your actual mobile app project that you're going to be making, you could use some of these elements for the app as well. So this becomes like your strategy of the elements to implement inside your app. Let me show you how important this one is, because everything I'm giving you is an important set of assignments and exercises and projects to build your portfolio. Let me show you, like, Apple UI kit, Apple OS. I can even type, you know, the iPhone thing. See? This is your UI kit for your Mac. This is your UI kit for your OS on your phone, okay? And you can, like, without this, they can't build the actual system, okay? There's another one here. Now I'm going to give you some examples. I know there's templates online and stuff, but this is why I want you to make your own, right? There's another one here, okay? So I'm going to show you Illustrator first and then XD after. Because I think it's only fair that if I teach you a new program, it might be a little too much of a stress level by the time you transition to the new software. So if you're more comfortable with Illustrator, you can do this in Illustrator, no problem. So I'll accept Illustrator, or for those of you that want to challenge yourselves, you can use Figma or XD. Now I'm not going to cover Figma till 2 weeks from now. First I'll cover XD for the first, starting today, next week, and the week after, and then we'll get into Figma, right? So we're going to cover both programs. But I want to keep this also Illustrator as well, because it's only fair to you, right? I'm not going to spend too much time in Illustrator because I'm not going to take over Sheila's class, right? But I will teach you some of the basic fundamentals to get this done. Because it's maybe you don't know how to use Illustrator to do this kind of stuff, right? I'll give you some other practice challenges. Here, let's do the Windows. So there's the Windows OS kit. Especially when it comes to the taskbar, the icons, the buttons. This is what these apps need in order for them to work. Okay? So that's why it's important that you have this in your portfolio, right? You have, look, this is my UI kit for a mobile app. This is my UI kit for a website. And then with that, you have the supplemented or the supported products that go with it. Yeah.
I'm thinking ahead to what I'm going to put in my portfolio. Which of our assignments overlap and interact? Like, is the UI kit going to be for the wearable technology that we are designing is going to flow from one to the next? And what does this look like?
So no, the whole purpose of you doing the user persona was to just explore the research part of the UX, which you have to understand, like how to interview people. Like I didn't really, like honestly, if I had like another semester with this class, I could drag this on and make you really talk to people, interview people, write their questions. I know you can do that. But I wanted you to invest yourself in designing an actual scenario of a product, like a make-believe product, like something like smartware, and then having two user personas built in. So you understand the whole process of it. That's all. But no, this UI kit is separate.
So what will end up being in a portfolio of the, so we're on this practice stuff, and then we're going to apply all of those things to the final assignment?
You could, and you can probably decide to do something else. Because your UI kit might not match your app that your group will come up with.
Right.
But
I just visually all the things we're doing.
no, I like that. No, of course, the bird's eye view. That's the, yeah.
Right now, I'm just like, I'm making this, I'm making that, which is different from our final assignment.
So going forward, a lot of these things will marry each other and connect each other, yes. So the UI kit will be more appropriate for that relationship to segue to the project. Because you could use the UI kit, the buttons and stuff for the app.
And you're talking about, I know also that we're making small sites.
That's at the very, very end.
That's at the
Yeah.
very end, and that is separate from all.
That's right.
But we will be creating.
Yes.
Well, so we'll be doing it.
You're gonna be doing two UI kits. One is gonna be for your website, one's gonna be for the app, and two projects, the app and the prototype for your website, which is an app as well. And we have from now till April to get all this done.
You don't have to be.
Yeah.
Because some classes, they don't give us like the. Also, like, I just want to know.
No, yeah.
You're laying it out.
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep it nice and user-friendly, right? And listen, I've adjusted my classes accordingly because I've taught this for like 4 years now. So based on my experience with my students, it's a really perfect scenario where everything flows nicely. I've had no complaints so far. Everyone's happy. Students have good portfolios. At the end of the day, it's about you, right? I want you guys to have good portfolios, good knowledge, skills, how to apply this stuff. Are you going to become a UX, UI expert? No, but you could. I mean, who's to stop you, right? You just have to invest more time in anything that you do. It's a good old 10,000 hour rule, right?
And it's been debunked.
Yeah, but Tiger Woods wouldn't be Tiger Woods without the 10,000 hours he did doing what he does. It's 90% proven to work, okay? The more time you invest in something, you become good at it, right? Unless you have cognitive issues or something, you can't remember certain things, right? If I want to be let's say a figure skater, maybe I can't do it, regardless of how I try, right? So it's arguable, yes. Okay, let's go to do you guys open XD? Open Illustrator. Why don't we jump into Illustrator first quickly, and then we'll jump into XD because it's a nice 1-2 combination. I'm going to launch Illustrator as well. I'll give you a nice little warm-up exercise. Oh, and I do have student examples as well for the UI kit assignment, which I'll show you. Now, the thing about this UI kit assignment, it's not due until the 20th. So you do have some time for this, okay? It's not like due like next week or something like that, okay? So you can have like maybe 2-3 weeks, because that might tie in with your group assignment as well. So you can have some breathing space for this one. And next week, when I introduce the group project with the UI kit, a lot of you might want to merge the two together, just like you pointed earlier. When do we interact, or when do we overlap these assignments and projects? So going forward, these things will overlap each other to help you. So you can do something with purpose. So let's open Illustrator first, and XD in the background. So I have two programs open. Here's Illustrator, and here's Adobe XD. And although it's being discontinued in terms of support, it's still used in the industry. I still see YouTube videos, and I still see people, argue about it and say, why is it not being supported anymore? We have to work with the present, right? We can't think about next year, because who knows what's going to happen. Another program's going to come out, right? So you always have to be on the kind of the learning curve edge, right? Adapting. Here's the good news. Once you learn one piece of software, like when I learned Director, for me to teach Flash it was quite the transition, but the concept was the same. The linear methods, the sprites, the keyframes, the layers, the tools, the interface, just the menus were a little different, and some of the practices were different, but the main overall structure of the program was the same. So I adapted quite fast and easy. Same thing with XD. You learn XD with Figma, easy transition, right? Nothing that complicated. Just some of the behavior, interactive, more advanced methods are a little swapped, but everything else is the same. So that's why you learn one tool, you can easily, don't think it's like a waste of time because, now, they have a different program. No, the other program is probably like a predecessor, or like a continuation of the predecessor of the previous one. Right? Okay, so having said that, let's work with the most powerful drawing tool on the planet, which is Illustrator. Let's make a new file, everyone. We're going to web. A web file. We're going to have pixels here. Make it 1,000 pixels wide by 1,000 pixels tall. It's going to be just like a nice artboard for us for now. Yeah, 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels. Now, the UI kit can be any size. There's no size limitations of a UI kit. It could be the size of that red board right there, okay? Because you might have a lot of elements for your app. But I would say to you, you can start off with like a website size or like a US letter size to start with and build upon that. Because I can always go to the artboard tool. There's my artboard tool. I can always extend the artboard, bigger or smaller, if I need to. So I don't want to constrain you into thinking, what size should this be? Now, when it comes to the project, I will tell you, hey, you better pick an iPhone or an Android. You have to define a size. When you do a website, you have to define a size. But when you do something like this, experimental UI kits, you can just kind of start with a standard size. Like you can print it on a piece of paper if you want, make it user-friendly. So that's why I made it 1,000 by 1,000 to start with. Right? Now my interface is really old here, so I'm gonna make it Essentials Classic. That's my preference of the Illustrator interface. Let's do a warm-up exercise, okay? A warm-up exercise means I want to see how good you are with your shortcuts and your Illustrator skills. So, draw a circle like that. Big circle. Black stroke, white fill. Make the stroke thicker. I want you to give me a 10-point stroke. Okay? So this is just a white circle hanging out. Make the circle smaller. Tell me, is the stroke the same size when you make it smaller? Why is the stroke not resizing with the proportion of the resize? Why? Does this happen to you? What do you do to solve it?
Double click on the
Very good. A lot of people don't know this little hack. If you double click here, you can scale the corners and the effects. Very important, especially when you do buttons on a website or UI kits, because you're going to scale them smaller, bigger, different versions. You're going to have to always adjust the stroke based on your proportion. It's going to be, a little bit of a headache, right? So this way you keep it all consistent throughout. Always keep, and I'm glad Sheila did a great job explaining that to you guys. Keep the scale strokes and corners and effects all the time, right? So we're going to go ahead and make this, maybe I'll make this a little bigger here. Nice and thick here, right? I got a 12-point thickness stroke of this circle here, and I'm going to ask you to duplicate the circle maybe one more time and maybe another one. You guys won't step and repeat, right? Command D. Right? That's like my favorite thing in Illustrator, of course, because you can take 3 circles and just do this and, do Command Z and make patterns and all kinds of nice stuff, right? But we're going to take these 2 here and make, we're going to make, it looks like the Olympics, but how do you make this look like the Olympics, let's say? Like what's some of the drawing strategies that will make it look? What? Okay, first of all, these rings have a white fill. We should make them see-through so you can put your hand through them like rings, right? So we can take off the fill, right? And then we can also give them different colors, correct? Because the rings, if you guys watch the Olympics at all? How many colors are there? What colors are there? I think if I remember correctly, this is like a blue, maybe like a darker blue. This is like a red. So there's 5 colors. You know why there's 5? Why there's 5 rings? Very good. The 5 main continents on the Earth. The main participants in the competitions are from all the countries within the 5 continents. That's right. Very good. And these colors represent majority of the flag colors in the world. These are all colors that exist in most national flags. So we can have let's say, I think there's like a green in there, like a yellow. I think these are the 5. You can make it purple and pink, whatever you want. It's all good. But these are the main 5 that they use. The ones that are nice and classic there. So here's my challenge to you, just to get you more into with Illustrator. Is this the final logo? What's the real finishing solution here? What's missing? Can you guys see? Is this done? I'll show you a picture of the real rings. Interlocked, right? See, if I show you a picture of the real rings, I'm going to copy this image. This is why we're doing this, because it's, look, I messed up the colors a bit. This is yellow and that's, right? Shape builder will work. There's a lot of little cool methods that work. The rings are intertwined, right? Yes. Ours are not. How are you going to make them intertwined? Can you do it fast? I don't want to spend an hour doing this, by the way. 2 minutes, that's it. So how do we do it? Because you might want to make rings, buttons, icons, and stuff like that for your UI kit. I like this exercise because it's advanced, it's not basic, and it opens up different channels of understanding or interpreting Illustrator. So how would you link the rings? Okay, so there's 2-step solution, right? The shape builder might work, yes. You know what I like to use though? There's a new feature that just came out like a few years ago, which is really cool for this. I'll show you the quick fast. Intertwine, make Did you know that? So intertwine, it's under object, select all the rings together. Select make sure the stroke is set, the colors, everything. Intertwine make will basically do just that. And then you can actually click here, and that'll make it blue. Click on this one, it'll make it yellow. Click on this one, it green. Click on this one, it'll make it green. Done. So it's the fastest way. You know how I used to do it before? You guys, maybe some of you remember if I taught you this advanced Illustrator before. I used the Pathfinder tool. I used to outline the stroke, and I would use the Pathfinder and then do little color matches, right? Let me do it again. Here we go. Back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up. Okay, so how did I do this? First of all, let's ask yourself a question here. Do you have the rings, like are they hollow, right? Can you drag them out so you can see? Are they all, you know, kind of relatively the same position, right? Now let me just, so then what I did after that was I went to Object, Intertwine, Make. So if I do this, right, you know what happens? Illustrator is still in this mode of thinking, what do you do next? So you see how I select, it's like a switch. It's like, okay, it's on, now what? Well, now I'm gonna go and pick which intertwined shapes I want to become matched with the whole interactive feature, which might be one of these, not both, you pick one. If you pick this one, you can't do that one. Do you understand? It just doesn't make sense. Actually, it's like a switch on and off. But you go to the interacting segments and you can turn them on and off at will. And usually you do one here, one there, one here, one there. So it looks like they're actually linked together. Otherwise, it doesn't really look like the rings are connected. Cool feature. Before I would do this differently, so do this with me, but the next one don't. Like, I don't want to waste more time. I want to get into like the other stuff. So let me just show you what I used to do, okay? So you know what I used to do? I used to go to Object, Path, Outline, Stroke, okay? That means the rings look like this now, not like that. Get it? They look like that. So they're outline stroke, right? Then you can go ahead and use the Pathfinder, right? And the Pathfinder, I was able to do this one here. This one is called divide. You guys know the Pathfinder, right? You can unite shapes, extract shapes. When you divide, all the interactive, intersecting elements become divided. So that means if you do that, then you're going to use the group selection tool. You zoom right in, you select this one, and you do the eyedropper, and you match it to the blue. Same thing, you do this one, yellow, and this one, green, and this one, you probably do the same thing. So this was the way we used to do it before this new interlocking tool came out. So gone with the old, on with the new, but they're both important. I think you should know. I know I did it fast, but this is recorded. You can watch it again. If you want, I'll repeat this again if you want next time. But just so you know, there's two methods. The first one is newer and easier. If you ever have to do icons, logos, interactive elements like that, go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm just going to group this together when I'm done. Oh, there's one more when you're done like this. Once you finish the Pathfinder, I love this feature here. It says merge. So when you merge it, they all become one shape. They actually connect even better. The reason why I still like this one over the new one, if there's one reason, it'd be because I can still do like a white stroke, because the other one doesn't let you. It'll cut off the shapes. This one, you can still do the white stroke or whatever stroke color you want, and you can make it 2 points. So it looks like they're doing this cool little thing. Because the other method, you can't do a stroke because it's not outlined. Get it? No. Yeah, no, we're not. I did undo, 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 and I did it another way. So I did this 2 ways. This is the old school way. I like this because it has a lot more interactive stuff you can do in terms of design. The first method is quicker to execute, but you can't really do additional things like strokes and stuff after the fact.
How do you get to the divide? So you selected all of double click isolation mode and then you go to object?
Divide in the Pathfinder.
Oh my God, look at that.
Yeah, once you outline it, you divide it, and then you use the white arrow tool with the plus on it, the group selection tool, and you change the corresponding colors. Now, I'm going to group all this here. This is nice and everything, but it's important that you understand how to use Illustrator to help you, because you're going to be making icons, buttons, sliders, whatever you need to make for your app. These are your tools. You got to use all the tools necessary. Now let's make a button. The most simple form, and we're talking like not just a button like a circle. I know you can CSS, you can make buttons. Let's make a more interactive 3D looking button. So if we do something like this, let's say we throw a gradient on this. You guys know the gradient tool, obviously. We'll keep it black and white, just a grayscale button. We can always introduce color after. But the most simplest way to make these, interactive buttons, it still goes back to the very traditional sense of the way they're designed. So watch this. You can option drag, make a duplicate of this one, right? You can just make it smaller. I mean, I can use the scale method and do a more advanced, but you won't see the method where there'll be a lot of like copy, paste in front, change the mode, done. But I want to show you how this is done. That's why I'm copying it, duplicating it, positioning it. You can even center these together if you want, and then you select this forefront object and you can actually go push it the other way. So now you have this, see, when you have the opposite directions happening of a gradient, it creates this immersive three-dimensional looking button. And this could go so many ways: round buttons, elliptical buttons, square buttons, little sliders that you see, like little button sliders, volume sliders. This could present a lot of different things. You can even take it a step further. Like this could be, look, one, you make a second button, and the second one could go the other way, right? I just copied this button here and just did a slight modification. Well, you know what I will do in this case then? I would probably do this. I would probably go copy and paste. There's another variation you can do. Put this one in the middle and switch it to a linear gradient, sorry, a radial gradient. And then if you do this with it, now it becomes a little more, like a three-dimensional button, right? You can change the color and do all kinds of stuff. This is when you get into the eye candy of design. See, Illustrator does it so fast and fluid that you have to do any of this little fancy buttons and stuff. Even the simple ones, you can easily do it in Illustrator. No problem. Other forms of buttons, as you've seen them, can take many different forms, but this is the most typical, because then I can take this and do what's called like a slider. So let's just do a slider example. This button here, I'm just gonna group this together, Command G, and bring it to the front. And now this could become like a slider elements for my UI kit. Like, see, I'm gonna move this one here. Oops, extra button. This one can be over here with the slider, right? Of course, you got to make it look nicer and better, but this can easily, from a button to like a little slider element that you can create of a UI kit, right? And this is like, there's so many ways to approach this that you can design as many things as you wish. I know exactly what you mean.
That is not my aesthetic.
That's right.
Designer.
Absolutely. So then there's I call it the hidden gem. The place that you never knew existed. Maybe you did, I don't know. But did you know like this has been around for like 30 years in the software? If you go to Window, Swatches or Swatch Libraries, ready for this one? Did you know there's a web category for this? Did you know that? Yeah, there's web. And you know what? Sorry, I'm in the wrong area. It's under my pardon here. It's under symbols, symbol libraries. And there's the web icons. You guys know what symbols are, right? Why do you use symbols in Illustrator? What reason? What's the number one reason of using symbols? What are symbols? They're reusable elements, right? They take up less space. If you use one symbol, like repeatedly, it'll use up one memory RAM, one space for that accounted for symbol. You can also integrate symbols in more advanced things. When you guys do your, I think, packaging project you have to do in this semester, symbols have to be done in order to put them on a 3D object. So symbols are used for that too. Otherwise, it won't work. They have to be recognized as part of the internal program's library. It's like a library item. Library item, you drag it out. So this is part of the Illustrator library symbols, and they're a common set of web icons. These are not that impressive, but they can help you with things like, let's just say you're looking for that, timer clock or whatever, and you can actually integrate these things whichever way you want, right? But the problem with this is you can't edit it, or can you? How do I change the color of this? Look, it still says gradient on it, but it's black. Here's the thing. If you want to use symbols, and you can, it's okay. It just saves you time. You have to do what's called break the link. When you break the link, you can then edit the symbol. Okay? So I can drag any symbol. Look, you got mail, right? So if you want to edit this, you have to break the link, and then you can edit the symbol. Right? So if this helps you, because you might get stuff off the internet and you can't, why can't I change the color? Why can't I? You got to break it up, break it apart, or break the link in this case. Then you can edit the vector, because these are all vector shapes at the end of the day. That's why I love Illustrator for this, because it's a vector program. Command Y. Usually I do this when I do it. I put on my X-ray vision glasses and I do Command Y, right? I see through everything, see through walls. Yes. Oh, okay, so this is under View, GPU Preview, or Outline Preview. This is how I get to see everything inside. Without this, you can't use Illustrator that effectively. You have to see right through all the objects, right? Very important. Anyways, these are all for you to have and use if you want. But there's more. Just like that infomercial, right? If you call now, you get both of them. So the other one is here under symbol libraries, the buttons and bars. This has also been around for a long time. So what these give you is not just like, things you can use, but things to learn from, because I use this in some of my tutorials, even when we do like next, previous, when you do like an image slider for a website. Look, you can just drop these buttons here. Like you can use this for like a little video gallery. And this could be if there's another button over here, right? So this can replace this. Like, look how nice this button looks compared to mine. Do you know why? Because they invested more time designing it.
They're all like,
But this is how old this is.
well, that's what I'm saying. What if I want to use that?
But you can simplify that and make it look like 2025. It's just how you use it. You strip it. So watch this. You select it like this. How do you make this more modern? What do you do, right? So what, but I can't look, it's pink here, right? So break the link, right? And now watch this, you can select this. Oh, one more step. Once you break the link, you have to ungroup, and then you can go ahead and change all these things. So let's remove the gradient, there you go, okay? Come on, what's 2020, we're going to 2032 now, right? All right, so you can change any color you want, right? Based on whatever, okay, there we go, make it like a light color here. Now, it doesn't have to be, it's not just about the color, it's also, look, you can even take out the stroke if you want. Keep it more simple, right? So it's a little more simple or whatever you can use. So color does make a difference. And I can nitpick this thing for an hour and still work on the same button. That's fine, but don't forget you have to use a consistency throughout all your buttons. I'm not saying this is for you to come here and drag and use these buttons. I want you to learn how Illustrator is capable of making these things. So how are these made? Like, look at this. This will never go out of style. right? Look at this one. Ready? You can animate it. Watch this. See? Loading, 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 right? How am I doing that? So repeat, right? So it's loading. You're speaking of that. You're good, see? So it's loading. So you can use these buttons interactively to use them as parts of the loading screen too. Right? So how are these made? Let's take this a step further. I'm going to grab this one here, right? Look at this. If you break the symbol, right? Break the link. This is the World Wide Web, how it all started, yeah. It's like the Big Bang. So you see this thing here? Illustrator's capabilities are more than just adding colors and gradients. This, for example, here, if you look at the appearance panel, where's the appearance panel? Look, has a screen. Remember the blend modes we did in Photoshop? You can do blend modes in Illustrator. So if it helps you create that, maybe do that like a game or something. You create those little glass-looking buttons or something more eye-candy. You could change these screen modes to accommodate that. Because if this was set to normal, it's going to look like this, you see? But see, a simple black and white gradients, and you adding like a screen effect, it'll look like all of a sudden it's like part of this highlighted glass effect. That it might work for your UI kit, it might not. Okay, so just if you want to, you know, experiment with this stuff and break it apart and see how it's done, you can click on any one of these and see how they did them. You see, this is a gradient with a screen applied filter. Okay. All right, now, so this is Illustrator. Now let's see how this corresponds with XD. Because if I make a UI kit here, I can bring this UI kit into another program. I don't know if Figma can read Illustrator files. I doubt it. But you could take this to XD. This is why I favor XD sometimes over Figma, because the way they communicate, Adobe and Adobe, instead of Figma, which is a third-party program, another developer, which they were trying to acquire. So what I'm going to do now is this. I'm going to do a save as, and I'll save this locally on the computer. I'll call it UI kit. On the desktop. Okay. And let's say you invest time in Photoshop and do the same thing. Did you know you can actually do the whole thing in Illustrator and Photoshop, and all you do is open it in XD and execute it? Like you can do that. So you can be, your design software could be multiple range of softwares. Here's XD now. So what I'm going to do is instead of opening a new file, I'm just going to go right click, open with Illustrator. Sorry, XD. So I'm opening Illustrator in XD. And there it is. So I really missed this part that you could, you know, easily bring in from elements from one program to another and do all kinds of nice stuff in XD. Because making this in XD is not going to be simple as I made it look like in Illustrator. And I know your skill level now, you're using Illustrator as your second semester, you're good with Illustrator. You can do this stuff, no problem, right? So it's easy to execute these things, whether they're simple, more futuristic, whatever your style of choice is, you can easily bring your buttons in here in XD.
But not.
No.
Wow.
There's different ways. There's different export features you have to do, but it's not as easy as Adobe with Adobe. It's like speaking the same language, right? So now, since we're in XD, let's see what we can do in XD in addition to this. So I'm just going to put this away. Going to close it down. You all have XD open? Okay, let's create a new file. Go to create new file. Okay. Oh, by the way, when you create a new file, I'm just going to close this one down. When you're here, right, you could create a new file and it gives you the default, whatever I had chosen previously, or you can create a file for an iPhone, for an iPad, a Google Pixel phone, like an Android. Usually this one works for the latest ones, even Samsungs and iPhones. I tested it. So iPhone 14 Pro Max seems to be pretty up to date with the current technology. Unless the iPhone 15 comes out with 15 more cameras on it. Then there's the web. Okay, you're doing a website. This is the one you want to go with. Instagram story, whatever, sure. You can do an Instagram story if you want. I never used it for that, but yeah, really. Custom size, right? You can customize any size you want. So whatever you want to choose, you can start with. A very simple interface. Don't forget, these are, you know, based on creating these very simple user experience integrations. So they made the app simple for that reason, right? So let's go ahead and click on, you guys have the new file button here? Right? What size do you have? Do you have like 1920 here? Perfect. So basically this is a website, 1920 1080p, or your television at home, 1920 1080p. Even if it's 4K, it still has the same ratio. Just the resolution's better and the pictures are more vivid and stuff. 8K, 4K, 16K, doesn't matter. Still this format here, 1920 1080p, right? This is considered like HD. So this is your screen. You can always change the width and height. Another way to change it altogether, if you look here carefully, if you click here, right? Okay, now this is called the artboard. So when you design something in here, it's called the artboard, or just a page on your working environment. Just like anything else, you can resize the artboard if you want, right? You can also go to the, let me just go to layers for a second. There we go. Okay, so there's your tools. Very simple. Look at those. If you recognize those tools, they all look pretty identifiable, right? The selection. There's only one selection tool. Okay. There's a rectangle tool or square tool, circle, square, or let's call that the polygon. Just like Illustrator. Does Illustrator have a triangle tool? It's called the polygon tool. You can make 3 sides out of it. Same thing here, okay? Triangle can be a polygon, vice versa. Then you have the line tool and all these other tools here too. But the more one that you're wondering, this here is the artboard tool. So with this one, you can go ahead and make additional artboards. See, this tool here, it's like your artboard tool. And artboards show up here on the left. Now this is called, look at this. There's 3 buttons down here, bottom left corner. This is your assets, this is your layers, and this is your plugins. We're not going to worry about plugins because that's a third-party thing. So we're going to worry about these 2 mostly, especially the layers, because this is where everything is located. So this here, right? You can see everything here. Your artboards, your layers, your objects, your artwork. Everything is situated on the left-hand side. Right. Now let's delete this artboard because I don't need 3 or 2. 1 is good. So I'm going to just use the selection tool. See, the selection tool also controls the artboards like objects. So it doesn't matter after the fact. You can just, you know, like intuitively always be in the selection tool. Like no matter what, you can always control and delete stuff. Spacebar always gives you the hand. So I don't want you to move this around. Rather than doing that, hold the spacebar, move the document around. Just like you would do in other Adobe programs. Okay, next, shortcuts, zoom in, zoom out, Command minus, Command plus, same rules apply in all the Adobe programs. So there's your environment interface overview, okay? Now let's start using some of these tools. Use this rectangle tool here, the rectangle tool, and draw like a little button, right? And there's the button here. And just like Illustrator, if you click on these little circles inside, you get to round the corners, right? You round the corners in and out. You get to control the properties of this button. Let me put it to the bottom right corner here, because what you do is once you create your shapes or objects, You get to modify them here. This is your properties. So all your stuff you have to do here, like alignments. Repeat grid is pretty cool. These are things like Figma doesn't have. Like I really miss some of these features that XD has over Figma. But then again, Figma got its own pros and cons and whatever. They're both good in their own way, right? So this is repeat grid. This is your width and height and X and Y position. This is how you flip things back vertically, horizontally. This is a cool scrolling feature. This is a feature that's also fixed position when scrolling. When you do an actual app or a website, it keeps those elements in place, which is pretty cool. It's like a sticky mechanism. A responsive resize, usually it's set to on or auto. Then there's the appearance. Look, fill and stroke, right? So everything is here. There's no other complicated palettes and stuff. That's why this program is very simple to teach and to understand. So let's just give this a fill. Let's change the color to something else. Let's make it a nice, I don't know, maybe an orange or something. There we go. Right. And then let's make the stroke, like the border color, something else as well. I'm going to make the border color blue. Right. And I'm also going to increase the border size. Now look at this. See the one? I'm going to go with the keyboard up with the arrows. I'm going to go up, 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 like make it thicker. Or I can type the numerical value corresponding to the width that I want. So this is now my button, right? And notice when you resize it, it's automatically, that doesn't resize with the stroke like Illustrator does. The first thing I was pointing out earlier. So you kind of have to control both at the same time, right? So
there's no way to scroll states.
I think if you have like a component, like it's in a more advanced form, you could resize together uniform, but not in a single form like this. Maybe later, there might be another way after. But for now, it's straightforward, it's simple, it's how it is, right? So this is pretty much how you would, create basic, and look, when I make a simple interactive menu or something like that, let's say the button's going to be here on the right. Watch this. Option, drag, shift, right? Command D. Oh, Command D doesn't work. Figma works. Isn't that something, eh? Shouldn't XD follow Illustrator's shortcuts? It doesn't. Figma does. I was impressed with Figma though. It does Command D, Command D. Do you know why? Because here you can go like this and it'll do like a reference. Like, oh, that's the auto distribute vertical type of thing. It will give you a guide. But you know why else it doesn't do that? Because XD has a really cool feature called repeat grid. This is kind of cool. When you activate this button right here, repeat grid, look, it gives you a little tutorial when you roll over it. But forget that. Just click on it and make this expand down and you can make all kinds of repeat grid functions. You see? So it's called repeat grid. And you know what else? If you go in between the buttons, you can control the spacing. So you could technically do this and say, okay, I like that. So you select the object, you click on this little button here, repeat grid. So do me a favor, delete the two, just keep one button. Keep one button, get repeat grid, extend it like height, and try practicing with its variables. Like for this one, look what else I can do. Look, I'll move it here. Watch this. Look at that. You make a whole like a tic-tac-toe game or something. And then I can make this even do that one as well. So I kind of like this feature. It's pretty easy to control in terms of the but then you're saying, well, now what? The whole thing's like a group. What do you do then? Well, then what you do after is you ungroup the grid, and guess what? They all become individual objects. Pretty cool, right? I like that. That's honestly, that's a cool feature that XD has. Like, which I find Figma doesn't have the same type of way it's implemented. But again, it has its pro. Figma has its own way of doing it with step and repeat and stuff. It's all good. But once you ungroup the grid, all these become individual buttons, and you can make them into buttons and do stuff with them. Right? All right. So that's pretty much how that part worked. Next, let's do a circle here, a nice circular object here, right? This circle, give it another, attribute, stroke, fill, whatever you want here, doesn't matter. Right? So I got two shapes. Same thing like Illustrator or any other object-oriented program. This is in front of this one. Why? How do I put this in the back? I like the shortcuts. Command-Shift, left square bracket. Command-Shift, right square bracket. So the same shortcuts in Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign work in XD, right? You can also go right-click, arrange. You can send it to the back this way as well. But the shortcuts I just did were right here. Command-Shift, left or right square bracket. So these shortcuts are pretty unique and they work really well if you're a designer and you're used to doing this stuff. And you guys are doing this 5 days a week, so you're pretty comfortable with the shortcuts now. It's pretty good in that sense. Okay, another thing is grouping. So look, if you select both objects, you can hit Command-G, and yes, they're part of a group. And if you double-click, you get to go inside the group, like, Illustrator has isolation mode, and you do that, and it doesn't tell you, it just highlights the bounding box. That's an indicator that you're inside the group. And if you double-click, triple-click, then you can really go and get some. That's your direct selection to an Illustrator. You gotta go inside the object to edit the object's nodes. But if you press Escape, you exit. Escape once, escape twice, escape 3 times. You exit, right? So that's how you can enter and exit this group. Or ungroup, right-click, ungroup. Same kind of rules apply with XD, okay? Another way you can interact with objects in XD that you're familiar with is using this here. I did this earlier, Pathfinder tool. But see, there's only 4. Illustrator has like 12. So the most common ones are this. Unite, right? Unite the objects. You can also do subtract. You can also do the intersection and whatever is excluded. So there's the main 4 Pathfinder techniques that are there, right? You also have the align thing. So if you, select one or the other, let's say I want to align this perfectly in the middle, you can go align to the top, middle, bottom, right? You can change all this stuff based on your alignments. So it's pretty straightforward. If you have used other programs, it's easy to transition into XD. The complicated part is when you do the interactive stuff, which I'll show you how to do as well. Yeah.
This is just me having a philosophical question. If the rest of the Adobe design around the same time as XD had, it would also have this pretty clean interface.
Yes and no, because I remember when I first started using Photoshop and Illustrator back in the late 90s, it was simpler. It was actually even lighter color. There was no dark skin, it was light skin. Not that the color makes a difference, but it was simpler. And over the years, how do you make money? You build more tools, you sell more software, you upgrade. Yeah. So now Illustrator has 20 set of tools, probably more, but 20 to see right off the bat, right? When I used Illustrator, I had 8 tools. And guess what? Some of those tools are still there, and they're the most important ones. The pen tool, the arrow tool, the objects, right? The rotate tool, the hand, the zoom, right? The scale tool, right? That's it. That's all we need. The other ones are like, whatever, like the little, the width tool and stuff like that, pucker and bloat, like who uses that stuff, right? But they're there for, creative, artistic things and whatever. But these programs are, just answer your question, yes, they're, I guess for the purpose of what this program does, it is simple, right? Now, the triangle tool, I like this one here myself because if you hold shift, you can get a perfect triangle. If you don't, you get whatever, like a cone shaped. And I don't know if you knew this, just like Illustrator, let's see if you remember this. Let me delete this object here. If you do this, right, look at my other hand. Look at my other hand. Up, 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 down, down, down. You can control how many, just like Illustrator, you can control right off the bat how many sides you want. So if you want like a diamond, you do this. Or if you want like a pentagon or a hexagon, you do this. And then you can hold shift and get a perfect shape out of this. Then you can give it like a fill. Take out the border, and now you have this hexagon type of design or shape with your interface that you're making. Put some images in there, make an interface out of it, whatever, right? And how easy it is to bring images in here? Super easy. Let me just kind of go quickly here. I'll grab some, Office, right? Images, right? Let me just quickly save this picture to the desktop for a second. Right? This is what I also love about XD. You watching? Look at this. Drag and drop. Right? Oops. Select it first. Hey, come on now. Oh, okay. Why is it not working? It's a WebP file. It's got to be a JPEG or a PNG. Now, you can also still optimize these files in other programs, but just get a proper file. Let me try one that's not, maybe this one here. Save image as. That's a JPEG. Now, can I trick this to become a JPEG? Can I hack it? Can I hack the file? Let's try it. I'll hit enter, and I'll change the WebP to a JPG. Let's see if it's hackable. Use JPEG. Now, I hacked the file. There's a hack for you. So you can override the WebP. Just put your own extension. This doesn't always work, by the way. Don't quote me on it. But you could overwrite files sometimes. And yes, this becomes now, if you double click, now you can control, just like InDesign, you can control the frame or you can control the object in the frame. So if it's like an image, look, you double click or just deselect to go away from it. You can either select the whole thing as a whole, or again, or you can resize it as a whole, but to double click, I like how it interacts with the whole environment stuff as well. Same thing with this image here. Let's grab it to the next one, right? And vice versa. So it's nice how you can interact with images, objects, and, pretty simple, made simple, super simple. Whereas you can also go file, import, right? Watch this one, file, import. And then you go to the desktop, select the picture, import it, and there it goes, right? I like drag and drop, right? It's a lot easier. Yes? Oh yeah, I'll just put it here. I'll just put it here, independently.
Inside of the hexagon.
Yeah.
Like, not that one, someone that has an image. Can you use the image in the hexagon, like edit it?
Yeah, if I double click, absolutely.
Oh, I see.
I just did it earlier. Look, you can no, you can even resize it. Look, even resizable too, right? So it's totally editable. Yeah, absolutely. Right? I mean, it's pretty amazing how this program works with design too, right? Sometimes if you have the design done already in Photoshop or Illustrator, you can bring it in here. Next thing is this line tool, just like any other line tool, just draw a line. You control the size, right? No big deal. You can control the edges though. Remember the edges? Ground cap, bud cap, end cap, all that stuff could be also done right in here. So this property reflects on what's being selected. If you have an image selected or an object selected, it'll give you the options for that particular selection, right? All right, next, the pen tool, my favorite. You guys love the pen tool? Who loves the pen tool? All right, good. So how to use the pen tool in here? I've seen other programs butcher the pen tool. It doesn't even work. This program did a good job. So you can actually go and trace things back and forth. Let's say I do want to make like a curve, right? I do want to do a curve here. Let's say I want to cut this point, right? Oh, double click. Sometimes though, I know. Sometimes though, look, this is the hack. Ready? Option, click to redirect the next one. You see? Option, click redirects the next target point. Just like Illustrator, if you option or alt click on a PC, you can redirect the anchor point to the next corresponding, or sorry, the handle to the next corresponding anchor point. So option in Photoshop too, remember with the clipping paths, option cuts the clipping path or option redirects the anchor point. So, pen tool's pretty good. I would definitely use it here. If it gives me the opportunity, I would definitely, don't have to go to Illustrator and then copy and paste it in here. Copy and paste, did I just say that? You think if I copy and paste this, it'll go exactly there? Copy, ready? Paste. Yes, copy and paste does work, and then you can ungroup them, and guess what? Well, this is an advanced thing that we did. Remember, the rings were all messed up and stuff. So be careful doing complex operations. If you do, leave it alone. Don't mess with it. If you want to mess with it here, right? So the type tool. I want to be careful about this one. You can draw a text box just like you would in InDesign, right? And just put a bunch of text in there, right? But if you do that, it flows like a text box, right? You see, like basically it's a text box. But if you make buttons, if you make like headings and like one single text items, then you want to just click once like you would in Illustrator. And then you type things like button, right? Here's the benefit about doing this. You can click on this little circle and it's scalable very easily just like that. So difference between a text box and a text field. The difference is clicking once or clicking and dragging a box. So once you explore this stuff, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, this is the artboard tool and this is the zoom tool. That's it. There's your tools. This is how easy this program is. Okay, the only thing is that we'll do next week, I'll show you how to do the interactive stuff with it. Okay, we'll make the buttons roll over and click and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm gonna maybe teach you how to do a quick, like an app development tool in this. And then we'll use Figma as a relationship comparisons. Okay, so I'm gonna save this. Do you have any questions so far? Do you guys like XD? Pretty fun program, right? Once you start using it more, become that much more acquainted with it. Okay, it's gonna be that much more easier, just like anything else, especially XD. So let's do a save as. We'll call this whatever this is here. Okay, we're done for the day. I know I kind of went over today a little bit, but we're good. I'll see you in the next class. Don't forget those user personas. They're due this Sunday. Next week, we'll talk about the UI kit a little more. I gave you a lot of time for this one. And then we'll talk about the project, the group project. Start thinking about who you're going to work with. Perhaps send me a message telling me, maybe I'll make like a Google form online and we can solve the groups there. We'll figure something out next week. Okay, have a nice week. I'll see you then. Hey.
So for the user persona, are we to submit the XD file or just images?
So have it designed the way it's finished. A PDF can work too.
Okay, PDF.
Yeah. PDF. What program are you gonna use? Dave?
I'm thinking of using Illustrator.
Okay, so make a PDF then and send it over. Okay. You saw the examples online that I showed you, right? Yeah. Those are good. All right. Have fun.
I'm sorry with the examples and I don't understand.
No.
I don't understand.
So let's say you come up with a product. Make something up. Make up something like a bracelet. Smart bracelet. So you take a picture of a smart bracelet, you make it a presentation. Simple. Nothing. You don't have to make it. Get a picture on the internet. You pretend. And then the two people you make up, that will be the users for that. A girl and a man, whatever. She will benefit that, tells her blood pressure reading, blah, blah, blah. But the way you tell the story is by the way I showed you the demo. The little buttons. So you can Google user persona. Like you can just Google it. User persona. You can see examples of user personas. But the difference between this, I'm actually come up with a product. This way, the user persona reflects the product. It doesn't even have to make sense. It's just an exercise. You know what I mean? Just to get you engaged with the stuff. Because that's what UX designers do. They do user personas. Okay? Okay? You're welcome. Hey, how's it going?
I'm just wondering what size of website should we take, because I'm making our own website for my career, for my studio as well, and for our career portfolio.
Nice.
But in on Google, there's a lot of specifications of what a website should be. 1920, 1080, maybe 1440.
Do 1920, 1080. It's like the bigger one, okay? And that one will basically fit with most browsers, screen sizes, and you can make it responsive. Now you do the website in bleaches files, right?
Yeah,
But in XD, you're gonna do it on.
1920. So it's always better to go for 1920.
Because
Most of the
everything.
screen sizes.
Look at this, man. Look, you go to my websites now. My website used to be big, like even my Canadian made products. That's it. See, it stretches,
1920, 1080.
right? Look at Amazon. Look at Amazon. Amazon, right?
It's not a
Like look how big it stops there. You see?
yeah.
But this extends over. But that's fine. People still bigger. But if it's too small, then you're.
So that's mostly designers stuff. They want to make it.
Yeah. But if you measure this, look, Command 4. Watch this. 0, right? 1500 pixels. See what I'm saying? So every design is different. I still like the 1920 because it's considered full screen.
Yeah, and it matches most of the screen size now.
Most of that, it basically it corresponds to most screen sizes. Okay. So. Now I forgot to press the stop button there for a second. We're still recording the session in 1 minute.
No, we can get this directly. Where can we get it?
Which one? I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna upload. Yes, this recording is being stopped right now and uploading.